What makes a chef want to play with fire? On today's menu. Across the globe, there's nothing quite like the primal appeal of live fire cooking.
È la più grande.
A Tuscan grill master shares his secrets.
We're basically having the primal experience of man, heat, and meat.
A Wisconsin firebug finds his calling,
White gull fish boil. It's kind of like a mini show outside.
taking the heat of Morocco's communal fires.
Tangia is a dish not eaten on a daily basis. It's only on special occasions.
Reinventing the great American cookout.
I've always been a big fan of live fire cookery. If you don't run a chance of ruining your dinner, where's the fun?
Forse questo gruppo hanno capito to beef or not to beef. That is the question.
Dario Cecchini is arguably the most famous butcher in the world, if not certainly the most famous butcher in Tuscany. On the most basic level, I suppose Dario would like to teach people how to grill meat properly.
Io sono per I denti.
But on an essential level, he'd like to take them back to the primal experience of man, heat, and meat. My name's Lori DeMori, and I'm a food writer based in Tuscany.
Referred to as the Michelangelo of meat, Dario Cecchini elevates grilling to an art form. At his grilling school in Ponzano, he's famous for quoting Dante while teaching students that a perfectly prepared steak begins and ends with the dry heat of an open flame. Seared on the outside and a sangue, Italian for blood red, on the inside, a steak grilled by Cecchini brings out the carnivore in all of us.
Tuscany is a land that asks that the people who live here fully give themselves to the thing that they do.
Tutto.
So Dario happens to be a butcher, but he's not just a butcher.
Insieme di tutto questo che.
He's a butcher.
Perché no?
And why not? Why not do what you do with passion? This is your only life. For generations, his family's had a butcher shop, a macelleria, in the town of Panzano. His passion for all things meaty has inspired him to open a grilling school, La Scuola della Griglia.
Sono sempre le tre grandi bistecche.
Dario says that in Toscana, there's 3 steaks.
Il primo
This is
taglio
the first cut of the steak, the famous bistecca alla fiorentina.
è la più grande.
It's the largest one. It's exactly 3 of Dario's fingers.
Più piccola
So the
E
second
buonissimo.
steak is slightly smaller,
la costata alla fiorentina.
and
Appena.
the meat you can see is slightly more marbled.
La terza bistecca
The third steak, which in his opinion actually is the best,
è un cuore.
it's a heart, look.
È la bistecca panzanese.
So that's the inside of the thigh. That steak is a perfect steak.
Ha bisogno di vedere un grande fuoco di grill.
It needs a perfect grill.
Allora, in Toscana tutto inizia.
In Tuscany, he says, everything begins, everything continues, and everything ends in front of the fire of a hearth.
Legno di olivo.
E quercia.
Okay, this is oak.
Una temperatura troppo bassa.
Okay. One thing to avoid is meat that's too cold. You'd like it as close to room temperature as possible. Leave it out for 6 to 8 hours before.
Si attacca il capezzolo della mamma.
The reason that there's 2 sources of heat going on is because you keep the fire going in back and you pull forward the embers to cook on in the front. This fire has to heat the house. This fire has to cook the food. It's a continuous process.
All'anima piace.
So we've turned off our cell phones, we've detached ourselves from technology, and we have our souls that are going on a trip to
un
the
viaggio.
beginning. Oh my goodness. Woo! So these steaks are going to be cooked on both sides, and what it's doing, this high heat, it's searing the meat. It will take 20 minutes to cook.
Li funzionano molto bene, Lori.
Yeah, those are his best utensils, so that's what he uses to turn the meat.
La carne è perfetta così.
I've asked Dario, well, you didn't put anything on the meat, no salt, no pepper, no
Allora.
herbs, and he says, it's perfect like this, smell
In
it, and it's
questo
true.
è cosa di molto molto simile.
All right, so we're basically having the primal experience of the first man who discovered fire, who had a piece of meat and put it on.
Secondo Dante, io credo che ci sarà un inferno.
Dante says that the flames are where all the gluttons are going to end up. But he thinks where you have flames, you're always going to have a grill, and something delicious like this maybe won't be that bad after all.
La prima bistecca è pronta.
When the first steak's ready, what he wants all the students to do is take your first piece with your hands, nothing on it at all, and pay attention to the flavor. That's you're trying to remember what the essential flavor is. There's something about this sort of meat that's clean. This is the second steak, which is like the prime rib. Oh, the fat, marvelous. There's some carnivores around. So we're on the third, Dario's favorite, la bistecca imperiale panzanese.
Ah, guarda l'occhio, guarda.
So who's for the first one?
First one.
So the bistecca fiorentina wins, which is why it's the most famous piece of meat in all of Tuscany. What Dario would like people to do is to actually pay attention and bringing them kind of down to an elemental level, to taste things in their most simple, unadorned fashion, to ask each other, what do you think? What do you think? And having it sort of enter in on some deep level what we know about what things taste like. That's the poetry of eating. That's the poetry of grilling. That's why he wanted to do it. Grazie.
A lot of the people that come up to Door County are coming up, one for the beauty and also for the fish boil. Some people have accused me of being a pyro, and I guess as a kid I was a little bit. So for me to be throwing kerosene on the fire is a lot of fun. My name is Tom Christensen. I'm the master boiler at the White Gull Inn in Fish Creek, Wisconsin.
Legend has it that Scandinavian lumberjacks brought the fish boil to Wisconsin. On the banks of Lake Michigan, about a 3-hour drive from Milwaukee, the White Gull Inn keeps the tradition alive and well.
Hey Andy, how you doing?
More than just a pyromaniac's dream, there's also a little science behind the boil. Large amounts of salt raise water density, causing fat and juices to rise to the top, boil over, and burn away in the flames. The result? A tender, flaky whitefish and a very impressive floor show.
The White Gull Inn is a resort, restaurant, hotel. Our most famous meal is the Door County fish boil.
You guys might want to back up a little bit. It's getting a little warm over there. The traditional fish boil is red potatoes. Right now it's Lake Michigan whitefish. I believe there was a time when they used trout.
The Door County fish boil is a traditional meal started by the Scandinavian settlers of the peninsula about 100 years ago. And now, of course, it is something that everyone who visits Door County has to try.
Well, we're nicking all the potatoes. What it does is it allows the salt to get into the potato and it gives it a little different flavor. On a busy night, I do about 150 pounds of potatoes, which comes out to be about 900 potatoes. WGI Master Boiler is White Gull Inn Master Boiler, but we started using it as a joke because we both had master's degrees. And so we figured we weren't just a fish boiler, we were a master boiler. What makes a good fire is hot embers, kerosene, and sometimes a gentle breeze. Okay, it's 3:45. It's time to light the fire and get it ready for the first boil. I think the smell of burning wood probably brings people back to their childhood. I actually have people who get disappointed after the last boil and I come out here to put out the fire because they like to sit around the fire and they like to have the smell of the hardwoods burning. Pinch of salt. Roughly in the first boil, it's between 5 and 8 pounds of salt. 1 pound per every 2 gallons of water. The older customers who are on salt-free diets and say, my doctor doesn't want me to oh, my cardiologist is going to be mad at me. But in reality, not that much of the salt makes it into your food. Most of it just stays in the water. Potatoes are far enough along to put the fish in. White gull fish boil. It's kind of like a mini show outside. We take questions from the audience. Then when I throw kerosene on the fire, it superheats the water. The fats and oils that have come to the top then boil over and you have a cleaner tasting fish.
Of course, the climax of the fish boil, when there's the big overboil, the big flare-up.
Other questions I get are, have you ever been burned? I've never been seriously burned. I've had some hair burn off. I've had what I would call a common sunburn. I don't like to have a boil over where the flames don't get fairly good size. The excitement comes from me by getting the crowd excited. Thank you. The first time somebody sees it, you'll hear things like "Opa," which I've never known what it meant, and just "Oh wow," and little kids say, "Oh, that's cool." Thanks, Andy.
I think a lot of people, when they hear the word fish boil, they're a little skeptical. It doesn't really sound that appetizing. And then when they go in and taste it, it's frequently referred to as the poor man's lobster because it's this wonderful, fresh fish with melted butter poured all over it.
This is the best fish boil in Door County. Each night for fish boils, we serve between 200 and 250 people. Our fish boil is all you can eat. So every once in a while, we end up having to do a third pot of fish because we had a really hungry crowd. We're gonna give it a little shot of kerosene. My customers a lot of times will tell me, not so much thanks for cooking my meal, but they'll say thanks for the show. And both of those comments, thanks for cooking my meal or thanks for the show, they both mean a lot to me.
Open flame or open fire is very essential in the lives of Moroccans. Inside every neighborhood, there's always one hammam, which is the Turkish bath. The fornaci is the place where water is heated for the hammam, and that's where also the tangia is cooked. Tangia is a dish that cooks slowly for a long, long time in a pot that's buried in ashes or ambers. My name is Hamza Bouzouzou, and we are in Marrakesh.
Moroccan tangia owes its name to the squat earthenware vessel in which it is cooked. Tangia is customarily prepared only by men who drop off the dish at their local hammam on their way to work. Mr. Abdurrahim bin Sahrawi is a painter in Marrakesh, but he's famous for his tangia, and he is very well known for the passion and the love that he puts in the preparation of the tangia. And just watching him prepare it makes everybody wanna enjoy this delicious dish. Tangia can be prepared using different kinds of meat. We are actually using beef. Now the meat that's used actually comes from the joints. The bones are nice because we get some fat from them and we also get the marrow from them. Now these are the preserved lemons, and that's what gives the meat the really nice flavor. Now cumin and then cooked butter. The cooked butter is actually rancid. Moroccan people love to use because it adds such a strong flavor to it. And then we add 2 cups of water and 1 glass of olive oil. And we add the final touch, the hole to allow the steam to go out. Barakallahu fik. Salam alaikum. The tangia is never cooked at home. It has to be taken to a place called farnaci. Salam alaikum. This is the farnaci where this tangia is going to be cooked. This fire is not actually only heating the tangia, but it's heating the cistern where the water for the hammam is being boiled. The person who tends the fire in the farnaci, they are like chefs. Now, the most important thing to check for is the level of water.
By being cooked for a long, long time, the spices inside the pot melt and infuse into the meat. And that's when you really have a tasty and tender meat. So I told him it's beef and it's about 2 kilos, and he knows now that it's gonna take 3 or 4 hours. The wood that they are burning here actually is cedar wood. They go through 400 to 500 kilos every day. They drink 20 liters of water a day, but I'm sure they sweat 30 liters. Oh, it's scorching hot, and we leave him to do his job. Tangia is a dish that's really typical of Marrakesh. It's a dish that's prepared to be eaten with other people. It's only on special occasions. And it was just perfect. The smoke always leaves a little bit of a taste on the meat itself. There's a saying here that goes, the art of cooking is the only art that feeds the person who does it. If you are a painter maybe or an actor, you might not do so well, but being a cook, you are sure that you at least have some food on the table.
My father was a big griller, and he would measure the wind and look at the barometric pressure, and he always declared, burn it on the outside and raw on the inside. But when I went to culinary school, I actually found out that my father didn't invent grilling, but it was grounded in, traditional French culinary thought. So I've always been fascinated with the technique. What are you doing, Chef?
I think you want some more fire in here.
My name's Chris Schlesinger, and we're at my house in Westport, Mass. on the eve of my 4th of July party.
Chris Schlesinger has been in the business of starting fires for over 30 years and is no stranger to the art of grilling.
Nice spice to it, guaranteed.
With 8 cookbooks to his credit, he is also the chef and owner of the East Coast Grill in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Considered by many as one of the leading experts on live fire cooking, when he throws a party, the whole backyard is ablaze.
This is 160 pound. Whoa. This will be the biggest one that I've ever done. I've always been a big fan of live fire cookery. Yeah. That's huge, to deal with the ambiguities of live fire, and then also to put a whole animal on top of it, to me, is kind of the pantheon of the challenge of cooking.
Now the fun begins. All right, ready?
Oh yeah. Here we go.
There's 2 ways to get this on. We stitch it on. We're going to also clamp it on. It's not easy. All right, bring it up. If people are reviled by this, then they shouldn't eat a pork chop. I mean, this is a more honest way of eating meat.
One thing is constant throughout all the whole animal traditions is the respect for the whole animal.
All right, bring it up.
So what do you think, Chris? Over here? Yeah, man. The injector. Here we are at stage 2. We're injecting flavor like a brine solution into the hams. With grilling, I think some people mistake the technique and they think the flavor is a result of the smoke. But to me, the flavor is a result of the interaction with the meat and the high heat.
It's ready to go. I think you're all set, Chef.
It's moving the motor. You know what I mean?
You think we can fix that? When we did it this afternoon, it turned evenly without any flop. Look at the bodies torquing. We're concerned that later on there's going to be the pig coming loose and stuff. So several years ago, I caught the pig on fire and it basically exploded. I mean, it's a risky thing. That's kind of the thrill of the grill. It's like if you don't run a chance of ruining your dinner, where's the fun? I remember when I was a little kid and my dad, once a year, they'd have a pig picking. A couple old farmers would come and they'd set up their rig and they'd joke around with me, and then I'd have to go to bed. So at 1:30 in the morning here, and it's going to take 14 hours. And I'd look at them out the window, sitting in their lawn chairs drinking beers. And then I get up the next morning and they were sitting in their lawn chairs drinking beers. And I said, that's something I want to do. That's going to be fun. Cheers. All right, we had a little problem last night, as I thought. The unveiling, still all one piece. We were a little on level with our grounding, so the motor failed to push the pig around. At about 4:30 this morning, we had ignition. It was quickly put out by the expert cooks and fortunately transferred to the barbecue machine. You know, modern cooking, we use microwaves, and we set the microwave to 2 minutes. We put a chicken in the oven for 350 for 45 minutes. And I always kind of thought grilling was real cooking because you had to make so many different judgments that each fire had its own unique ethos, and the food coming off that fire was unique every time.
The human creature gets very excited around fire. There are primal elements involved. It's in the nature of the beast. Chris understands this instinctively, and I think it has a powerful effect on how he sees and presents food.
So there it is, that's the very rare half rotisserie, half spit roasted, half barbecued pig. First time in the history of culinary arts. That's worth staying up all night for. We have pork appetizer, followed by a pork entree, followed by pork intermezzo, pork dessert. Hey, what's going on, man? I'm a little greasy. Nice to see you. The good fellowship that surrounds food, that's always excited me and always made all the hard work of being a restaurateur worth it. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. You hungry? And I think for us, as well as other people throughout the world, cooking with fire has always been associated with celebratory, happy times. I mean, I like fire whether it has something cooking on it or not.
Forensic science takes us one step closer to understanding the strange killings in the animal kingdom. The brand new series of Predator CSI, Wednesday on the National Geographic Channel.